people walk out of me before.
Is your mic on? Oh,
Always being
right.
so charming.
I see. Can you hear me?
I don't care for you if the putrid sludge you're prowling out.
He's going to try us on another source.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
We're trying to hook up with Philip Ittner in Ukraine. He's this mild technical glitch as we try to make this happen. We're hopefully bringing him in on. Let's see right now. Hopefully that'll work. Let's see. Guest is in the green room, and then we add him to the picture, and then we go to here. Beg your pardon. Let me bring him in. He's going to be on a different setup. Are you there?
No.
Can you?
Yes.
Yeah. Now we can hear you. Look at that.
Well, darn. I'd hoped we could use the mic again, but we're going to have to go with the audio as it is. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You actually sound great, so fear not. Yeah. It works just fine. So welcome, Philip Ittner. How you doing? How you holding up? Are you? Yeah.
Good days and bad. Good days and bad.
Right.
I'm worried, frankly, about the run up to May 9th, which is a huge, huge event in the Russian calendar.
Right.
And one that I think Putin will be doing something for. What it'll be, I don't know yet.
Right. Neither does he, it seems. Although he has, word is, and I don't know if you've heard about this or from better sources than I have, but word is that he has effectively handed over control of the country to his prime minister, and that he is now directing the war.
Oh, great.
Yep. That he is now making the decisions. He is basically being the military commander of this, and basically taking, I guess, Sergei, what's his name, out of the guy who was sitting across the table from him Shogu, yeah. That he's either allegedly working hand in glove with him, or he's literally, taking over from that guy.
Well,
and by the way, explain what May 9th is. Some of the people in the chat are asking as well.
Are asking what is May 9th?
Yeah.
May 9th is the Victory in Europe Day. It's their anniversary of the end of the Second World War. And that is an enormous event in Russian history. And ironically enough, actually, it was mostly Ukrainians that died in that war, not Russians. Right. And actually very little Russian territory was ever occupied by the Germans. They tried to push on to Moscow, and they got beaten back badly in their initial offensive. Right. And then they tried to besiege Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, and they tried to push into Stalingrad, which is an important city in the south of the country, because they hoped to push on to the oil fields in the Caucasus region. So ultimately, actually, Russia was never occupied nearly as much as Ukraine, Belarus, and Poland were.
Hence the reason for the territory, why they want it, because that it gets run over instead of them. Essentially, it's sacrificial ground. Yes.
That's right. Something the Ukrainians are now refusing to be in the future. So, and when we think about when our history of World War II is very different than the Europeans, and the European and the American history of World War II is very different than the Russian. And so for the Russians, this is a living history. This is something that there are still veterans that are around. But aside from that, it was such a traumatic event for them that it was, and it's only, even if most of the veterans are dying off, it's only a generation away. So the children of those veterans are deeply imbued with the idea and the importance of what happened in the Second World War, what they call the Great Patriotic War. So every year on May 9th, and remember, I used to live in Moscow, every year on May 9th, they will put on this massive military parade. And in the past, it's been used to make some major declaration. But this is going to be a different year. I feel it in my bones, and all the indications are from inside the Kremlin and from just all the kind of the smoke signals that are coming up from intelligence agencies around the world he's got something he's going to declare on May 9th, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's another May 9th with a bunch of tanks and missile systems and
Right.
guys marching past and
Right.
jets flying overhead. That's what it normally is, and I hope it's going to be the same this year. I don't think it will be, though. I really don't, and I think he's going to use the moment to make some sort of statement or do something, which would even be worse.
Well, he would have to do that before that day, is the idea. Is that leading up to that, he's not, launching something.
In conjunction with.
Right.
Right.
I think there's three roads of thinking. One is that it's, it's a bunch of, as the Chinese would say, fang pi, butt wind, that it's a bunch of noise but no substance, which has been the actual, functioning of their plan right now. Because think about this, is effectively they have attacked the country with everything they have so far and have actually lost territory from the disputed territory in the last run. They've got some roads in everywhere, and people will call that Russian territory, but it isn't a ubiquitous connective tissue across the country, as we've seen, Ukrainian troops getting through and blowing up bridges between Ukraine and Russia recently as a way of stopping these supply chains. If they had the whole area like the maps show, that would be impossible. It's so much land that they're getting from, through there. If they had as many, troops to hold the area as they would need, they wouldn't be able to do it. But apparently the Ukrainians have been getting through with some regularity, meaning that it's really porous. And the idea that they're going to, they know that even a tactical nuclear weapon at this point is the end of Russia, period, as a functioning country. They know this. And so they've been, talking about this in a way that they think it's going to scare the world into backing down, which is, I think, that they figured out a way. Anything you have that's good, the Russians, Putin in particular, and I guess like malevolent actors of all sorts throughout the world will find a way to turn the good thing that you like into the bad thing. Look at social media manipulation, fake sock puppet accounts, those kind of things. You got a rule of law. We'll put a sock puppet prosecutor in, and basically he'll only prosecute people for minor stuff and let all the bad guys go. But in this particular instance, it's the fear of mutual assured destruction. Nobody wants to ratchet up to a nuclear war. So by threatening it first, they can have all the conventional war they want. If the world is afraid of ratcheting it up, it is the inversion of mutual assured destruction, which was supposedly keeping war at bay, is actually creating it's an umbrella under which war can kind of run amok. Because anything shy of that is okay.
The problem with that is, though, you're calling somebody's bluff when the stakes are pretty high.
Yes.
I agree. Look, we've been on the same page about the whole potential use of nuclear weapons in the past, and I still stand by the fact that it would be suicidal for him.
Right.
It would be suicidal for Russia, but it would be suicidal for Putin himself, because, you can say what you want about Russia and the Russians. They like the narrative of them being the good guys, and if they suddenly start dropping nukes on sovereign states, including states that are, speak the same language,
right?
Yeah, filled with relatives, then I've said this before as well, T-How. Russia's history has been one of we suffer, we suffer, we suffer, we suffer. We can't suffer anymore, and the whole thing gets turned upside down. And then we suffer, we suffer, we suffer, we suffer. Can't stand it anymore. Whole thing gets turned upside down. That's been their history up to this point. One would hope that might change, but that would take a significant change in the culture and the nature of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that he could make an announcement, he could call for a mass conscription. He could call up a lot of reservists that he has not called up on. But the problem with that is that then you're looking at body bags coming back, and you're talking about You're talking about body bags of people who are from Europe, Western European Russia, where the power structure of Russia lies.
Right.
He has been pulling people from his Far East and from a number of other, different
Yeah,
regions
Chechnya
of.
and like troops that were supporting their front in Georgia.
Right, exactly, and kind of guys that are out in Siberia where they're little dotted settlements, and it's few and far between, so there's no infrastructure really to speak of.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about the kids of the vast majority of Russians being sent into the meat grinder that will be Ukraine,
Right.
that's going to change. And I don't know if the Russians are going to put up with that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, look, again, the idea that he has mass support within Russia is completely false.
Right.
If you get a phone call, at dinner time, you get a phone call and you're a Russian sitting there watching the news, and the news is basically pounding you with the idea that the great Russian state is all powerful, and a voice on the other end of the phone says, "Do you support the war in Ukraine or not?"
Yeah.
You're not going to say no, because the next thing you know, there could be a knock at the door, literally.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, also, when we talk about the legacy of World War II being so prescient in their minds, the idea of a KGB police state is very prescient in their minds. So, that actually a lot of people who are alive and well today do actually remember. They were in their 20s at the end of the USSR, when there was still a police state. So I don't know if the Russians are going to be willing to put up with some sort of drastic mobilization.
And that's what it would require.
Is not.
I mean,
and that's exactly. They're going to have to. And now, look, they have a history of. I mean, their military doctrine has been, in times of absolute crisis, throw bodies at it. Just throw bodies at it. And I don't know if the modern Russian people are going to put up with that in an era when there are VPNs and they don't live exactly, rich lives, but they've got heating, they've got a car, they've got a TV, and they can get drunk at night and have, a pretty. It's a pretty miserable life.
They do have something to lose, right? They do have something to lose, and that's the currently,
including their children.
Yes, right. Well, that's the babushka story that we had talked about a little bit before. That that's in many ways what brought to an end a lot of the adventurism.
The first Chechen War.
Yeah, and the
first Chechen War was ended because now Yeltsin was not the leader that Putin is, and Yeltsin didn't have 20 years of indoctrination, and Yeltsin didn't have the mystique of being the strong leader that Putin likes to portray himself as.
Hold for a second. We got to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about one of the reports that those Chechen soldiers are, rather than bringing anybody back, bringing back wounded soldiers, they're just shooting them. On behalf of and they're finding their bodies and witnesses to this in places like Bucha and others, and how that's being possibly received, if at all, back home in Russia. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. You can follow Philip Ittner on YouTube. I will post his vlog again on my Twitter at Hal Sparks, and you can follow him at Philip Ittner, which is a 1L 2 T's on Twitter. We'll be back right after this. Yeah.